Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction. Not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Everything in a region of space 500 million light-years across, including our own Milky Way galaxy, the Andromeda galaxy, and thousands of galaxy clusters, is being pulled toward a single point at 630 kilometers per second. We are moving toward it right now, carried by gravity we cannot resist towards something we cannot directly see. The object doing the pulling sits hidden behind the densest part of our own galaxy, obscured by dust and stars so thick that optical telescopes are blind in that direction. This invisible gravitational giant was noticed in 1973 when astronomers detected that galaxies were not moving randomly in their local universe. They were streaming en masse toward one point. The discovery raised a question so fundamental it reshaped our understanding of our cosmic address. What is massive enough to pull 1 million galaxies at 630 kilometers per second? And what happens when we get there? This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the expanding frontier of unexplained cosmic phenomena, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Space is not quiet. The universe is filled with electromagnetic signals, from the cosmic microwave background radiation left over from the Big Bang to the steady roar of stellar activity at every wavelength of the electromagnetic spectrum. Against this noise, radio astronomers look for something specific. Signals that are narrowband, repeating, and structured, the signatures of intelligence rather than nature. Natural processes tend to produce broadband emissions spread across many frequencies. A narrowband signal at a single precise frequency suggests something deliberately tuned, and deliberate tuning implies a tuner. The search for such signals has been ongoing since 1960, when Frank Drake pointed a radio telescope at two nearby stars and listened. In the 60-plus years since, the instrumentation has grown enormously in sensitivity, and the sky survey coverage has expanded from a handful of stars to millions. The verdict so far is ambiguous. No confirmed, repeating signal from an extraterrestrial intelligence has been received, but several anomalous signals have been detected, investigated, and not definitively explained, including at least one that, had it been received today, would meet every criterion the scientific community had previously agreed would constitute first contact. The silence of the cosmos is not total. It is merely inscrutable. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The Great Attractor is located approximately 250 million light-years from Earth in the direction of the Centaurus and Hydra constellations. Its influence extends across the Laniakea supercluster, a region encompassing over 100,000 galaxies and spanning 520 million light-years, a structure so large it was only fully mapped and named in 2014. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered the anomalous motion was first noticed in 1973 when Vera Rubin and W. Kent Ford found that galaxies in the local universe were moving in ways inconsistent with the uniform expansion of the universe predicted by Hubble's law. A stream of peculiar velocity, motion above and beyond universal expansion, was converging toward a specific point on the sky. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Abell 3627 galaxy cluster, also known as the Norma cluster, was confirmed in 1996 as a major component of the Great Attractor after radio and X-ray telescopes partially penetrated the zone of avoidance, the band of sky obscure, D by the Milky Way's own stars and dust. Abell 3627 is one of the most massive nearby galaxy clusters known, containing hundreds of large galaxies. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation, but the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, the zone of avoidance is the primary reason the Great Attractor remained uncharacterized for so long. The plane of the Milky Way blocks approximately 20% of the sky from optical telescopes. The Great Attractor lies almost exactly in this obscured zone, requiring X-ray, infrared, and radio observations, less blocked by galactic dust, to map the structures within it. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of, beyond the Great Attractor in the same general direction lies the Shapley supercluster, approximately 650 million light-years away. The Shapley supercluster contains more mass than the Great Attractor region itself, and is now understood to contribute significantly to the peculiar velocity stream, meaning our galaxy is being pulled not just by one attractor, but by a cascade of gravitational influences extending hundreds of millions of light-years. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. The Laniakea supercluster, defined in a landmark 2014 paper by R. Brent Tully and colleagues in Nature, reframed the Great Attractor as the gravitational focal point of our cosmic home, a watershed in the flow of galaxies 500 million light-years across. Laniakea means immeasurable heaven in Hawaiian. The Milky Way sits on the outer edge of this structure, drifting inward toward its center. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations. And in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that the Norma cluster, Abell 3627, is the primary component of the Great Attractor, representing a conventional supercluster of galaxies whose combined mass generates the observed peculiar velocity stream. This is the mainstream astrophysical position, confirmed by radio and X-ray mapping through the zone of avoidance. The structure requires no exotic physics, only the familiar force of gravity acting across cosmic scales. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that the Shapley supercluster 650 million light-years beyond the Great Attractor is actually the dominant gravitational influence on the Milky Way's motion, with the Norma cluster serving as an intermediate waypoint in a larger gravitational cascade. Peculiar velocity surveys have shown that the Shapley supercluster contributes roughly half the total observed motion of the local group, making the true attractor more distant than originally identified. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that the Laniakea supercluster framework developed by Tully et al. in 2014 incorporates both the Great Attractor region and the Shapley supercluster into a coherent picture of large-scale structure formation driven entirely by gravitational instability in the early universe. Our position on the outskirts of Laniakea, drifting toward its center, is simply the normal gravitational dynamics of a universe that has been clumping for 13.8 billion years. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it, does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Tully et al. 2014 Nature paper defined the Laniakea supercluster by mapping the three-dimensional velocity flow field of approximately 8,000 galaxies. The mapping revealed a clear watershed boundary, a surface where galaxies on one side flow toward the Great Attractor region and galaxies on the other side flow away, defining our supercluster membership precisely and placing the Great Attractor at Laniakea's gravitational focus. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented the Norma Wall, a sheet of thousands of galaxies behind the zone of avoidance adjacent to Abell 3627, was revealed by radio surveys in the two HRS and HISOA surveys. Its mass, combined with Abell 3627, accounts for a significant fraction of the observed peculiar velocity. X-ray observations confirm the Norma cluster as one of the most gravitationally concentrated nearby structures. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed peculiar velocity surveys using Type Ia supernova as standard candles, conducted by multiple teams, including those of Alan Dressler and the Seven Samurai collaboration, confirmed the streaming motion toward the Great Attractor region and constrained the attractor mass to the equivalent of tens of thousands of Milky Way-sized galaxies, consistent with the observed cluster population in that direction. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Laniakea supercluster concept has given the Great Attractor a new context as the center of our cosmic home rather than an anomalous pulling force. The Square Kilometre Array and the Hirax Radio Telescope Array will map the zone of avoidance with unprecedented precision, revealing the full mass distribution of the Great Attractor region without optical obscuration. In approximately 4 billion years, the Milky Way will merge with the Andromeda galaxy before either reaches the Great Attractor. The journey is cosmologically slow relative to the timescale of stellar evolution. No exotic physics is required to explain the Great Attractor. It is gravity from an immense concentration of mass. But the sheer scale of our infall, 630 kilometers per second, carrying everything we know toward a destination we are only beginning to see, remains one of the most humbling facts in modern astronomy. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Great Attractor, the invisible force pulling our entire galaxy toward it, from the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Great Attractor ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.